It started with steam, thick, curling smoke rising from under the hood of a car stranded just off the two-lane road I took home from campus every Monday. I saw it before I heard it, the muffled clunk of the engine trying to breathe, then choking. The car was pulled into the shoulder, hazard lights blinking like a silent SOS. And something in me, curiosity, instinct, I don't know, told me to slow down. I pulled over 20 feet behind it, shifted into park, rolled down my window. "Hey, you okay?" The man stepped out from the driver's side. Tall, maybe 60, worn leather jacket, salt and pepper stubble, broad shoulders, but not in an intimidating way. More like a memory of strength he hadn't yet let go of. He turned and nodded, shielding his eyes from the sun. "Radiator's blown, I think. I called for a tow, but they're saying 2 hours." His voice was low, steady, tired. I hesitated. "Do you want to ride somewhere?" He blinked, surprised. "You don't know me." I shrugged. "You don't look like you're gonna murder me." One corner of his mouth lifted. "That's what they always say before it happens." I smiled. "You coming or not?" He climbed into the passenger seat, slow and deliberate like he hadn't done anything fast in years. When he sat, the cab felt smaller. He smelled like cedar and wind and something warm I couldn't name. "I'm Claire, by the way." "Alan." We drove in silence for a few miles. My fingers drummed the wheel. I wasn't sure why I felt calm, or why I wasn't afraid. Maybe because his presence wasn't loud. It was heavy, like someone carrying something big and old inside their chest. "Where can I drop you?" "There's a shop on Meadow Lane. My friend owns it. I'll wait there." When we arrived, he reached for the door, then paused. "Thanks for this." I waved it off. "Just don't pay it forward to someone sketchy." He smiled again, more in his eyes this time. But before he left, he turned back to me. "Claire?" "Yeah?" He hesitated. "You drive this road often?" "Twice a week." He nodded. "Good to know." I didn't think much of it. I drove home, had dinner, fell asleep watching reruns. The next day, I was heading out for coffee when I saw the car. Same one. Parked across the street from my apartment. Alan was leaning against the hood, arms folded, watching the clouds roll in like he had all the time in the world. I froze, heart thudding. He looked up and smiled. "I owe you," he said. "Let me say thank you." Something in me should have said no, but my lips betrayed me. Okay. We drove to a bookstore cafe I liked, the kind with tall shelves and couches nobody policed. He let me order first, then bought both drinks before I could argue. He sat across from me, his presence as grounded as ever. We talked. About nothing at first, then about books, travel, regrets. He listened like no one my age ever did. Like every word had weight. I found myself leaning in. "So what do you do?" I asked. "I fix things," he said. "Cars, number people." "Kind of." I laughed. "That's vague." "On purpose." There was a pause, a long, quiet pause that didn't feel empty. Then he said, "You reminded me of someone. That's why I let you help." "Your daughter?" He didn't answer. He just sipped his coffee, eyes distant. And I didn't press, because I felt it too, the strange gravity pulling us closer. Not loud, not romantic yet, but something was blooming, something I didn't want to name. When we walked back to his car, he turned to me. "Take care, Claire." "You too, Alan." He didn't ask for my number. He didn't need to. Because for the first time in a long time, I was the one hoping he'd come back. And something told me he would. I wasn't thinking about Alan when I got dressed for dinner Friday night. At least, that's what I told myself. My boyfriend Matt had invited me to meet his family. We'd been dating for almost 4 months, and this was his attempt at something official. "It's just dinner," he'd said. "My dad's finally back in town. No pressure." I'd smiled. Agreed. Told myself I could play normal for one evening. I even wore a dress. Soft blue, the one that always made me feel a little steadier on my feet. Matt picked me up and didn't stop talking the entire drive. About his classes, his internship, the idiotic thing his roommate had done. I nodded, smiled where I was supposed to, but my mind wandered. Back to the cafe, to Alan's hands wrapped around that coffee cup. The way his eyes stayed quiet even when his words didn't. I shook it off, focused on the present. We pulled up to a modern ranch-style house tucked behind a row of pines. Warm lights glowed through the windows. It looked like the kind of place that had always belonged to someone else. Matt opened the door for me. "You'll be fine. My dad's chill." I followed him inside, and then I froze. Alan was standing at the kitchen island. He turned when he heard the door. The coffee mug in his hand slipped, just slightly, and then steadied. "Dad," Matt said, grinning, "this is Claire." Alan's face didn't change, but something behind his eyes cracked. Not fear, not shock, something else, something like recognition laced with guilt. "You're Claire," he said, voice low. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't real. I looked between them. "Your dad?" Matt laughed. "Yeah, why? You okay?" Alan stepped forward, hand out. "Nice to meet you." I shook it, slowly. His touch was the same as before, firm, steady. But this time it felt like a betrayal. Dinner was a blur. Matt talked. His stepmom joined us midway. She was sweet, kind, easy to smile. I played the part, laughed, nodded, answered when I had to. But my eyes kept drifting back to Alan. He barely looked at me, barely spoke. And when he did, it was in clipped phrases, like he was afraid he might say too much. After dessert, I excused myself and stepped out onto the back deck. The air was cold and sharp. It helped. A few minutes later, I heard the door open behind me. "I didn't know," Alan said. I turned. "You didn't know what?" "That you were his Claire." "Does it matter?" "Yes." He stepped closer, but not too close. "I wasn't looking for you," he said. "I didn't know until I saw you standing there." "And now?" I asked. He looked down. "Now I don't know what to do." I laughed, quiet and bitter. "Maybe stop showing up in my life like you belong there." He met my eyes then. "Do you really want that?" I didn't answer, because the truth scared me. I stepped past him, hand on the door. But before I went back inside, I whispered, "You should have said something." And he whispered back, "So should you." I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I stared at the ceiling, at the little cracks in the plaster like broken roads that led nowhere, and tried to make sense of what had just happened. Alan, Matt's father, the man who stood in my kitchen holding a mug with shaking fingers, who looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. I knew that look, because I'd worn it too, 7 years ago, when I woke up in the hospital after the accident. I was 15. There had been blood in my hair, a seatbelt burn across my chest, a nurse with kind eyes telling me I was lucky, that someone had pulled me from the wreck. But no one ever told me who. I hadn't remembered, not the crash, not the face, not even the name, until now. I texted Matt in the morning and told him I had a migraine. He sent back a sweet message with 3 crying emojis and a heart. He had no idea, and I didn't have the heart to tell him. Instead, I went back to the cafe. Same booth, same corner, ordered the same thing, and waited. I didn't know if Alan would come, but something deep in my chest, older than logic, louder than guilt, said he would. He walked in 15 minutes later, sat across from me like he'd been summoned. Neither of us said anything at first. Then I asked, "You were there that night, weren't you?" He didn't pretend to misunderstand. "I was driving behind you," he said. I saw the car flip. You hit the guardrail and rolled twice. I stopped, ran to you, got the door open. I swallowed. And you were unconscious, bleeding. I thought. He didn't finish. I carried you out. Your phone was smashed. I called it in from mine. But by the time the ambulance came, I was gone. Why? I whispered. He exhaled slowly. Because I shouldn't have been there. I was still on probation. I wasn't supposed to drive that far out of county. But I couldn't leave you. So I stayed until I heard the sirens. Then I left. I stared at him. You saved me. No, he said softly. I just got lucky. You saved yourself. I just got you to the surface. But I didn't know. I never knew. He looked at me then. Really looked. You looked the same. When I saw you on the side of the road that day, I knew. I didn't want to believe it, but I did. Why didn't you say something? Because it wouldn't have changed anything. And because I knew if I let myself remember, I wouldn't be able to walk away again. My hands were shaking now. I curled them into fists. Matt doesn't know, I said, and no. He can't. No. I don't know what to do. Neither do I. Silence, loud, heavy. Then finally I said, I think I've been dreaming about you for years. Alan looked down. Not in a romantic way, I added quickly. Just pieces, like someone who used to matter. And now I see you and I realize it was always you. He closed his eyes. Claire, I stood. I have to go. He didn't stop me, but as I walked away, I felt it. His gaze, like gravity, like home, like something I didn't want to admit I needed. I avoided Matt for 2 days. I didn't answer his texts, didn't return his calls. I told myself I just needed space, that it had nothing to do with the way his father's voice had trembled when he said my name, nothing to do with the weight of Alan's eyes still following me everywhere. But by Thursday, I couldn't pretend anymore. So I went back to the house. Matt wasn't home, work maybe, or maybe I was hoping he wouldn't be. I knocked anyway. My heart raced in my throat. Alan opened the door. He didn't speak, just stepped aside and let me in. The house was too quiet. A single lamp cast a golden glow across the living room. The same mug sat on the kitchen counter. The same jacket hung over the back of the chair. I didn't know where else to go, I said. He nodded slowly. I figured you'd come. We stood there, in the soft silence, neither one willing to move closer or away. Then I said it. You don't get to act like this never happened. His jaw tensed. I'm not. Yes, you are. You're pretending. Like you didn't come back for me. Like you didn't already know who I was when you pulled over. I didn't, he said firmly. Not then. But after, at the cafe, he looked away. I suspected. You didn't just owe me, I said. You remembered me. He ran a hand down his face. Yes. My throat tightened. Why didn't you tell Matt? Because I didn't want to destroy what he has. What about me? He looked at me then, and I hated how soft his voice was when he said, I didn't want to destroy you either. I stepped closer. You already did. He didn't flinch. Then why are you here? Because I can't stop thinking about it. About you. He swallowed hard. Claire? No, I said, you don't get to say my name like that. Like it means something. And then, tell me to forget it. Silence stretched between us. Then quietly he said, You're Matt's. I'm mine, I snapped. That stopped him. I was yours once too, whether you want to admit it or not. In that car, on that road, in that cafe. You knew it. I knew it. And I'm tired of pretending we don't feel it. Alan took a step back, Not from fear, from restraint. "I'm not a good man," he said. "Neither am I," whispered. Another pause. Another breath neither of us wanted to take. Then he said, "If you stay, I won't be able to let you go again." I nodded. "Then don't." We didn't kiss, we didn't touch, but I stayed. And that night, for the first time, we didn't lie to ourselves. The next morning, I woke up on his couch. The sun filtered through the sheer curtains, painting long lines across the floor. My shoes were still near the door, my jacket draped over the armrest. I was still here. He was in the kitchen when I sat up, pouring coffee, not saying a word. He slid a mug toward me across the table like it was something we'd done every morning of our lives. "Thanks," I whispered. He nodded, sat down across from me. We drank in silence. But this time, it didn't feel like we were avoiding anything. It felt like we'd said all the hard things already. And now, the quiet was just truth with no need for words. Then I asked him, "Do you ever think about it? The accident?" Alan stared at his coffee. "Every time I hear tires screech." "I didn't remember your face," I said. "Not until that day at the cafe. But I remember the sound, glass, breathing, and someone's voice saying, 'You're okay now.'" His eyes met mine. "That was me." I nodded. "I know." He reached across the table, slowly, like asking permission, and placed his hand over mine. "I was scared when I saw you again, not because of what I felt, but because I'd already felt it. Years ago." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I didn't just pull you out of that car," he said. "I stayed with you. I whispered to you until the sirens came. I held your hand. And I knew then, before I knew your name, that you were going to matter." My heart beat so loud I could feel it in my ears. "I think I loved you before I knew you," he said. Tears filled my eyes before I could stop them. "I used to dream about that voice," I said, "and I'd wake up feeling safe, for no reason, until now." He got up and walked around the table, knelt beside my chair. His hand brushed my cheek. "I shouldn't feel this way," he said, "but I do." "So do I." He leaned in, slow, gentle. Our foreheads touched before our lips did. The kiss wasn't desperate. It wasn't wrong. It was two people finally finding a truth they'd both carried in silence. When we pulled apart, I whispered, "What now?" Alan exhaled. "Now we stop pretending we're strangers." We spent the day in the house, cooking, talking, laughing in moments so strange and fragile it almost didn't feel real. He told me about his past, about the divorce, about the years he lost in silence after the accident, wondering if I had lived. And I told him about mine, about the hospital, the months of therapy, the emptiness that never left. And through it all, we stayed close, hands brushing, eyes catching, something warm always between us. That night, I didn't sleep on the couch. And for the first time in years, I didn't wake up afraid. I stayed for 3 more mornings, 3 coffees, 3 walks in the yard where neither of us said much, but everything between us had changed. I should have felt guilty. I should have packed my things and run the moment Matt called. But I didn't, because I couldn't. Because being near Alan felt like standing still in a world that never stopped spinning. On the 4th day, Matt texted, "Are you okay? You've been distant. My dad says he hasn't seen you either." I stared at the screen for a long time. The lie was so easy to write. Busy, studying, just tired. But I didn't hit send. Alan was sitting on the back porch when I stepped out, arms resting on his knees, eyes distant like always. He didn't turn as I sat beside him. "He texted," I said. Alan nodded. "I figured." I didn't lie. But I didn't tell the truth either. Still, he didn't look at me. "You'll have to." I know. The wind moved through the trees like it was trying to say something for us. He finally spoke. Claire, what we have, it isn't supposed to happen. I know, but it did. I know that too. I spent most of my life doing what I was supposed to, he said, raising Matt, staying quiet, cleaning up after the past. And when I saw you again, he turned finally. It wasn't supposed to feel like this, but it does. I reached for his hand. You're not the first person to break a rule for someone they loved. And you? He asked. I didn't know it was love until it already happened. The silence between us wasn't heavy now. It was full of something unsaid, but understood. That afternoon, I packed my bag. I didn't know what would come next, what I would tell Matt, how I would face the truth. But I did know that walking away without saying goodbye would be the only real regret. So I turned at the door. You changed my life, I said. Alan stood across the kitchen, his hands shaking just slightly. I didn't mean to. I know, I said, but you did anyway. He crossed the floor in 2 strides and pulled me into him. No kiss, just the kind of hug that says everything. I'm here, he said, and I'll come back, I whispered. I left before sunset. The sky behind me was orange and purple. I didn't cry, because love doesn't always look the way it's supposed to. It doesn't always come from the right people or arrive at the right time. But sometimes when everything breaks, something truer can grow in the cracks. We weren't supposed to, but we did. And somewhere, somehow, that had to be enough.